Welcome back, guys. We are reviewing last night's race at the Port Royal Speedway, the Bob Weichert Memorial. And wow, what a race this was. Port Royal Speedway establishing itself as maybe the top half mile in the country right now. The racing there is absolutely fantastic. They know exactly what to do to get the racetrack in good shape. And and even with all the rain we got the day before, everybody there did a great job to turn this facility around, turn the track around, and get it in shape for a 40-lap main event. The highest paying race in the history of Port Royal Speedway, the highest paying Bob Weichert Memorial in history, and the most cars that have ever showed up for this race in the history of the event. We had 28 cars take the green flag. We had 4 provisionals, and let's jump into it. So started the race off with Devin Borden on the pole. He drove out into the lead and looked like he was pretty good early on in the race. You know, he led the first 15 laps, was right up against the wall. And then when he got to traffic, it looked like he was definitely struggling a little bit. Tyler Courtney was getting up to him. A couple other guys were getting in the mix as well. Danny Dietrich, the eventual winner of this race, was kind of getting in the mix there. He was kind of running around 3rd to 5th throughout the beginning part of this race. And then around lap 15, 16, Devin Borden gets passed by Tyler Courtney, but the pass is negated by a caution. And so Tyler Courtney has to try and pass him again. But under that yellow, we go to an open red to put fuel in the cars and for teams to make adjustments and things like that. Under that open red, Devin Borden is found out that he has a little hole in the right rear tire where they try and plug it with a fix a flat type thing. And somehow it almost makes it all the way to the end of the race. Unfortunately, we'll find out later that it does not make it to the end of the race. It actually makes it to probably the worst timing of all time for a sprint car race. But anyway, on the ensuing restart, they are able to get that fixed for Devin Borden, and Tyler Courtney is able to get a great restart on the outside and motor by him on the start and go into turn number 1 with the race lead. He would lead laps 16 through 29. Now, while he was out front, the race behind him was absolutely insane between Corey Day, Anthony Macri, Danny Dietrich, Rico Aber was making his way forward. And then a couple other guys were back there as well. Spencer Baston was really strong early in this race, as well as Zeb Wise, and they ended up having bad finishes in this one. But there were a couple of guys really mixing it up there in the middle of the top 10. Kind of David Gravel was in there, as well as Logan Schuhart. But Schuhart kind of had the backup lights on throughout the race. He would end up in the 10th position after starting on the outside of the front row. But then Tyler Courtney, he leads quite a bit of this race, and it kind of looks like it was going to be his race to lose. That car was strong anywhere he put it, bottom, middle, top. He was able to put the car anywhere he needed to, and he was getting through traffic really well as well. And there's a couple of cautions, sprinkled in there. One guy that we're going to talk about is Brent Marks, and he was the hard charger in this race. He started in the 19th position, but it's not like he went 19th to 6th. He got a flat tire midway through he got a flat tire under the red flag break on lap 16, and he was able to charge all the way back up to the 6th position. And man, was he strong. I didn't even notice him until the final feature rundown. I was like, man, Brent Marks came back after having to go to the work area and drove it back to 6th place. What could have been for him if that didn't happen under that open red flag condition. But a great run for Brent Marks as the hard charger. And, so Tyler Courtney, leads laps 16 through 29. There's a couple yellows here and there. And then him and Danny Dietrich start to really duke it out. Anthony Macri's up there. Macri, obviously, we know where he's running out on the racetrack. He's pounding the top. Tyler Courtney's kind of floating the middle, running the bottom. And Danny Dietrich's able to put his car more on the bottom in the middle, not really able to run the top. Him and Macri having a good slider battle. Dietrich finally is able to clear him. And then at one point in time, it looked like Macri and Dietrich were both closing in on Tyler Courtney for the race lead. And then they had a pretty good 3-car battle for the top spot for a little bit. Then Macri starts to kind of slip out of the picture a little bit. Rico Aber then enters the frame. He gets going towards the end. And then it starts to come down to the very end of the race, right? With like 3 or 4 laps to go, it's a 2-horse race between Tyler Courtney and Danny Dietrich. Dietrich made the pass on Courtney on lap number 30. And then towards the end, Dietrich's in traffic, and Courtney's kind of roping him in a little bit. He changed up his line. He starts running the top like he hadn't been the whole race and is putting the pressure on Danny Dietrich. And with 2 laps to go, they come to the white flag. They are like this across the start-finish line, go into turn 1, and you know exactly where Tyler Courtney's going to go. You know exactly where Danny Dietrich is going to go. One goes high, one goes low. Courtney gets a major, major run down the backstretch, looks to the inside of Dietrich, makes the pass on Dietrich going into turn number 3, and at the same exact time, the yellow flies for Devin Borden. That fix-a-flat did not make it to the end, and that would send us to, quote unquote, overtime. Instead of 40 laps, it would turn into 41 laps. But thinking back and watching the replay a few times, that may have been one of the greatest finishes of all time at Port Royal or in sprint car racing history for what was on the line and the story with Danny Dietrich driving the Weikert's 29 car. My bad, I put the 48 on the board. That should be the 29. He was driving the Bob Weikert Memorial car. And, it would have been incredible to see what would have happened coming off turn 4, because when you watch the replay, Courtney was going to drive it in deep, and it looked like he was going to miss the bottom. Dietrich looks like he was ready to try and tap the brake and turn underneath of him. I think it would have been a drag race to the line for $75,000 to win, but unfortunately the yellow would come out, and that would send us into a green-white checkered scenario. Dietrich gets on the gas on the last restart, and Courtney looks like he spins the tires. There's about 4 car lengths behind him going into turn 1. Rico Eber gets a great start, and you can't blame the guy for going down in there trying to take second, trying to win the race. It's a pretty big pay difference between second and third, and it's a pretty darn big pay difference between second and first, obviously. And Rico knows that. He goes into turn 1, throws a slider at Tyler Courtney. Courtney crosses him up. They go down the backstretch, and Dietrich's loving everything he's seeing. He's got a 6, 7, 8 car length lead going into turn 3. Rico and Courtney nearly hit each other coming off of turn 4, and they race down to the white flag, and Danny Dietrich with the crowd erupting. They're on their feet. They're cheering. They're fist pumping. They're clapping. They're yelping and screaming. They are going absolutely bananas because the PA posse is about to win the Bob Weikert Memorial. Dietrich goes into 3 and 4. His race to lose comes off 4, and he gets the win as not only, the Bob Weikert Memorial for $75K to win, he's also the 4th different Durst Dice Roll winner of the year, taking home an extra $1,500 for him and $1,500 for a fan in the grandstands to bring his total up to $76,500, the biggest win of Danny Dietrich's career. Obviously, he's won the National Open before. That is probably a more prestigious race. But the thing is, with Dietrich driving that Weikert's 29, being sponsored by Weikert's Livestock for so very long, it's the Bob Weikert Memorial, it's his car owner Gary Kaufman's birthday. There were just too many things going on in one night for this not to be the biggest win of Danny Dietrich's career. And it's obviously the biggest, paying win of his career as well for $76,500. So Danny Dietrich, great job by him. It didn't look like, these first half of the race, it did not look like he was going to be a car to contend for the win, but it really, really got going at the end and was able to put his car in the right position, was able to make the right moves at the right time and protect at the right time. Got maybe a lucky caution there at the end, but nobody asked how you did it. They just know that you did do it. And so Danny Dietrich, he has won like almost $100,000 in the last like 3 or 4 days. He got $10,000 at Williams Grove, 76 at Port Royal, and we'll see what he does at Grandview tomorrow night. But great job by Danny Dietrich. That was awesome to see. Tyler Courtney comes home in second and is way, way ahead of his closest championship rival, Brad Sweet. And Tyler Courtney would leave with a 1-point lead in the championship standings with Kubota High Limit Racing. And so Tyler Courtney has the lead going into Grandview. And, he came in like 34 points behind going into Port Royal. We kind of knew going in that Tyler Courtney was probably going to beat Brad Sweet. We did not think it was going to be by this much in the final rundown, right? So Tyler Courtney finishes in second, $25,000 for him. Rico Abreu finishes in third from 8th for $12,500 for him. Anthony Macri looked like he was going to be a car to contend for the win. And man, he just couldn't really, it seemed like one lap he'd hit the hit the cushion off of 2 really good and get a monster run. But then every now and again, it just wouldn't work for him. And so it was really hit or miss on the cushion on that side of the racetrack. And Macri is able to end up in 4th. How about Parker Price Miller? He was fast all night. I would say with the exception of the heat race, he was fast all night long, qualifying, hot laps, and the feature. He goes 5th to 5th. And at one point in time, he's challenging up here for a podium position. Parker Price Miller with no crew chief ends up in P5. Great job by the 9P team. They have, I think, 3 or 4 top 10 finishes in a row now with no crew chief on that car. Nobody on that team is like designated crew chief. It is crew chief by committee on that team. So 5th place for him. And then Brett Marks, 19th to 6th after going to the work area. He could have been a factor for the win in this thing if he did not get that flat right rear under the caution brake. 7th was David Gravel. It was cool to see David Gravel there, World of Outlaws driver, challenging with the high limit contenders in the PA posse for the first time this year for him. He goes 11th to 7th, was not really a factor all night long, did not have a very good qualifying effort. Got passed by Chase Dietz in the heat race. So he was going 4th to 1st, and they got passed by Jake Carklin, got passed by Chase Dietz. Gravel went 4th to 2nd in the heat, 11th to 7th in the feature, $4,000 for him. Chase Dietz, 17th to 8th after winning his heat race from 3rd. That 1Z car was really strong all night long, and he brought the crowd to their feet when he went by David Gravel in that heat race, that is for sure. So great job by Chase Dietz and the Zemco team. Logan Wagner had a solid night. He was quick time overall in qualifying over 53 cars. He would end up in P9 after starting in the 9th spot, and really was just kind of hanging around the top 10 the whole race. Logan Schuchart, he was 2nd to 10th, so brand new race car for him, and it sounded like they actually, if you were watching the stream, you probably saw him have a different paint scheme there after qualifying and into the racing later on. Apparently something hit his top wing and put a big dent in the center of it, and so they had to change wings, but that brand new car did not bring a ton of speed. They went 2nd to 10th in the main event. But it was cool to see Logan Schuchart there with High Limit Racing as well. Mike Wagner, 22nd to 11th for the legend, and that was a good run for him. Corey Eliason, 23rd to 12th, solid run for the number 8 car. We'll see how he does at Grandview, where he finished 5th last year with Kubota High Limit Racing. We'll see how he does tomorrow night. Dylan Cisney took a provisional, 26th to 13th for the mayor. James McFadden, unfortunately, I forgot his magnet at home, so James McFadden did not have a very good night. It started off great. He was 2nd quick. I think he won his heat race, or he was close to winning this heat race from 6th. He got up there a couple positions, but he drove from 6th back to 14th. So not exactly the run that James McFadden was hoping for. Brock Zierfoss, one of the World of Outlaws drivers, 24th to 15th for him. Justin Peck finished up in 16th. Brian Brown was 17th. And there is Brad Sweet, 18th on the final rundown. He started 18th and he finished 18th. And that is the first time this year. There is now nobody in Kubota High Limit Racing that has finished inside the top 10 in every race so far this year. That streak comes to an end by a mile for Brad Sweet, and he loses the championship points lead. And, man, I think he came in with a 34-point lead, so a 35-point swing after one night at Port Royal, and we aren't done at Port Royal. So Brad Sweet and that team has got to figure this out if they want to stay in this championship hunt. We got 3 nights of the Tuscarora 50 later this year, and I'm sure Tyler Courtney is excited to get back there because he is clearly the dominant car when it comes to full-timers with Kubota High Limit Racing. Brad Sweet is severely off the pace when it comes to this racetrack, and I think that Clausen Marshall team knows that. Mike Walter finished in 19th. Chris Windham was 20th after using a provisional. Corey Day was unbelievably fast in this race. We talked about it during the broadcast. He had done 2 races at Port Royal, but had never made it past the first lap in the feature. Got caught up in a huge incident on the first lap of the feature, and another one he got into a heat race wreck, which took him out. And in this one, he started 16th, and by the halfway break, he was around like 5th or 6th, and he was just absolutely pounding the wall. It was so cool to watch him and Anthony Macri. Macri was in like 5th. I think there was somebody else in 6th, and then Corey was in 7th, and those 2 guys were on the top of the racetrack around the entire track, making up time, passing cars, making big moves. Corey Day, I cannot wait for the Tuscarora 50 because if he can keep the right rear on that car, then he is going to be a contender for one of those wins during that weekend of racing. And unfortunately, he did hit the wall and cut down a right rear tire. He finished in 21st. Casey Kane was 22nd. Tanner Thorson, I forgot his magnet at home as well, finished 23rd after using provisional. Devin Borden started on the pole of this race. He led the first 15 laps. Unfortunately, had that hole in the tire during the halfway break or whatever you want to call it. And after that, the car was not the same. He started fading back, and unfortunately brought out that caution on the final lap. And he would end up in 24th after leading quite a bit of this race and was looking for the biggest win of his career by a mile. Zeb Wise, he was up in the top 5 at some point in this race, had an issue, pulled in with about 5 laps to go, 25th for him. Austin Bishop, Spencer Basin also was fast in this one, had an issue at the end, finished 27th. And then Cy Lynch, he finished up in 28th position after starting in 21st. So Danny Dietrich, Dice Roller, started 3rd, went to the win, got 1,500 extra for that. Brent Marks was a hard charger at plus 19. Lap leaders, Devin Borden 1 through 15, Tyler Courtney 16 to 29, and Danny Dietrich got it done 30 through 41 for him. Absolutely fantastic event by Port Royal Speedway. There were 1 million people there. It was like a crowd at the Tuscarora 50, maybe a little bit less people, but it felt like a huge, huge crowd, not only in the grandstands, but in the infield as well. The guys at Port did a great job with this. This is now an event. I mean, they got stuff going on the entire weekend. Indy 500 watch party, golf tournament, cornhole tournament, all kinds of other stuff that I can't remember off the top of my head. They had a band playing. They had Jimmy Spencer, former NASCAR Cup Series driver there as well, doing interviews and autographs and things like that. So it was an awesome event at Port Royal Speedway. Great job by all of them. And I cannot wait to get back here for the Tuscarora 50 later on this year and see who comes out on top in that one. Obviously, another high-paying race. And that's all we've got for this race review. Congrats once again to Danny Dietrich and, Tyler Courtney and Rico Aver on the podium. So hopefully you guys enjoy this race recap, and we'll talk to you again here very soon on the channel. Thank you very much for the support. We'll see you in the next one.